and welcome to the Joyous Health Podcast, hosted by me, Joy McCarthy, and my Habs business partner, Walker Jordan.
On our show, you'll be invited to learn about nutrition, well-being, beauty, family, and business.
All the things that we're deeply curious and passionate about.
We love to chat and have a few good laughs.
And our goal is to bring a dose of joy to your day. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad you're here because today's episode is going to have a hugely positive impact on your health. You know, whether you're a newbie and you're just getting onto this journey of healthy eating and living, or you're a health nut like me, there are hacks that you can do to better balance your blood sugar that you might have never thought about before. So I chatted with Jessie, otherwise known as the Glucose Goddess on Instagram, where she educates and guides hundreds of thousands of people about healthy food habits, but very specifically how to better balance their blood sugar with simple hacks. You'll learn, for example, how apple cider vinegar, when taken at the right time and in the right amount, can help balance your blood sugar quite dramatically, and why you may not need to say bye-bye to mashed potatoes or your favorite dessert, but better plan out your meal to help your body better deal with sugar. Jessie holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Mathematics from King's College London and a Master of Science degree in Biochemistry from Georgetown University. Her work at a genetic analysis startup in Silicon Valley made her realize that as the key to good health, food habits beat genetics. In her first book, Glucose Revolution, Jessie shares her startling discovery about the essential role of blood sugar in every aspect of our lives, from cravings to fertility, and the surprising hacks to optimize it while still eating the foods that we love. And I can personally attest to the benefits of having better blood sugar balance, and for me, like really kicking my sugar addiction to the curb, and how it positively impacted my health in so many dramatic ways. So I'm very excited for you to listen to this episode. It is super informative. Jessie's so much fun. Make sure you go and please follow her on Instagram at Glucose Goddess. And of course, we will link in the show notes her book and all that good stuff. Before we get to the episode, definitely make sure that you're always in the know of all things Joyous Health. Sign up for our newsletter. Just go to hi.joyoushealth.com and you'll never miss an episode. You'll never miss a new recipe or inspiration to live a joyous, happy, healthy life. So here's my interview with Jessie. Welcome to the podcast, Jessie. How are you?
Thank you, Joy. I'm so good. How are you?
I'm amazing. I'm so happy to have you here. I first found you actually just through Instagram. It's amazing how many wonderful people we find through social media, as much as I'm like, social media. But then, you know what? That's how I found you. So you are doing so many amazing things. So I first want to just acknowledge you for educating the masses on how they can better balance their blood sugar, because I think so many people do not realize how important that is for their overall wellness. Like, why did you, I know in like looking into your background and how you got to this place, you actually have a bachelor's degree in math and then a master's in biochemistry, and then started your career at a genetic analysis startup in Silicon Valley. So what inspired you to make the shift to teaching people about food habits?
I love that question. Yeah, when you say it out loud, it's true. I have quite an eclectic background, but I'm definitely a scientist through and through. So I appreciate you acknowledging my work, and thank you so much for saying that. So the reason I shifted into teaching people about glucose has a lot to do with my personal health journey. So learning about glucose actually healed me when I was suffering immensely. And so after it healed me, I thought I need to share this with the world. And so that's when I started the Instagram and now the book. But if you want, I can give you a bit more background into my specific health journey and what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Okay. So when I was doing my bachelor's in mathematics, I really had no idea at that point that I wanted to be in health or, talking about nutrition. I really was kind of clueless as to what my passion was or what I even wanted to do with my life. And then an event happened that completely threw me off course and got me interested in health. So when I was 19, I had an accident. I broke my back jumping off a waterfall.
Jeez.
One of my vertebrae exploded. Yeah. Yeah, your face.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
when you hit the water, or you like hit a rock?
Just the water. I landed wrong, and
Gee.
my tailbone just hit the water at a bad angle, and then it went shack, 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 poof, and one of my vertebrae exploded under the pressure. I know, it's so wild.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so I had
That's
very
insane.
intense surgery. Yeah. Very intense surgery. Physically, I was healed in like a matter of months. But then, as I like to say, it was my mind and my soul that needed rehab. I was completely shattered from the inside out. My mental health was in the toilet. I was terrified of being alive. I was depressed. I was anxious. I couldn't be alone. I was really in a really dark place. And so at that point, the only thought I kept having was, my health is the most important thing in the world. Like, I need to fix my mental health so that I can feel okay again and be a, functioning human again. And so then I decided to go into health and to try to understand my body from the inside out. And that's why I decided to go study biochemistry in grad school. And after I did that, I thought, okay, I kind of have a sense for like how our cells function now in our body. And at the time, there was a lot of promise in the field of genetics. So I moved to Silicon Valley, and the company I worked for is called 23andMe. I think most
Oh
people are
yeah.
pretty familiar
I've
with it
totally
now.
done
Yeah,
23andMe.
nice.
Yep.
And I begged them for a job. I was like, please, I really want to work here. So they gave me an internship, and finally I stayed 5 years and led a really awesome health product team there. But as I was there, I realized actually my genetics are not as informative as I thought.
Mm.
My DNA does not tell me what I need to do to solve my mental health and to feel better. And then, completely serendipitously, I was part of a pilot study where non-diabetics were trying these devices called continuous glucose monitors, which are little devices you wear in the back of your arm that measure your blood sugar levels. And I became completely fascinated with that. And then I realized that glucose spikes, so big, rapid increases in my blood sugar levels, could trigger some of my mental health episodes.
Did you realize that because you saw the spikes and they were correlating with when you were feeling depressed or anxious? So you saw that directly
Yes.
from using the monitoring device? Like high blood sugar meant what for you?
So there was one specific instance where it was a couple hours after breakfast. I had just eaten a donut, and then I could feel these episodes that I called splitting or depersonalization, which is sort of a feeling of like you leave your body, everything becomes like in a movie, brain fog. You look at your hands and are yours. Like, it's very acute, at least in the way I experienced it. And when that happened, I checked my glucose monitor because I had been wearing it for like 3 weeks. And I saw this massive glucose spike just happening. And so right there and then I was like, oh, this splitting, one of the triggers can be a big glucose spike. And that was really transformative for me. So it was more like these acute episodes rather than, oh, overall, my glucose level was high this week and I felt more depressed than usual, even though that's
Right.
also true. But for me, it was really like, in the space of an hour, I could see and feel this happening. So I dove into all the science, and I learned that 90% of people who do not have diabetes experience glucose spikes every single day. And the symptoms are very familiar to people. They're cravings, needing to eat every 90 minutes, fatigue, difficulty losing weight, poor sleep, migraines, wrinkles, hormonal issues, chronic illness. I mean, the list goes on and on. And so I took it upon myself to summarize the latest science into really easy hacks that people could use to get their glucose level steady, heal themselves without going on a diet or doing anything extreme.
And it's amazing that, so first of all, you have inspired so many people, I'm sure. I mean, I just see it from social media, and I appreciate how you really simplify everything because people just get it. So let's talk about, and you mentioned, the role, how things can be affected in the body by your blood sugar, but can we go into that a bit more? Why can it affect things like cravings? And how does imbalanced blood sugar affect your hormones? And I mean, I guess the obvious one, everyone knows that high blood sugar could eventually lead to diabetes, but so many people don't realize all the other things, and even aches and pains in your body. Like myself personally, when I used to be totally addicted to sugar, I thought I was personal training at the time. This was before I became a holistic nutritionist. And I always had like just aches and pains. And I honestly just thought that my wrist was always sprained until I realized, oh, it's actually depending what my blood sugar is like, I get more aches and pains in my body. So can you talk about,
Wow.
let's just dive a bit more into some of the health impacts, the negative health impacts that having imbalanced blood sugar means.
Let's talk about cravings, because I think
Yeah,
we're very familiar with cravings and how that feels. So
totally.
there's a study that was done at Yale in 2018 that showed definitively how big spikes and drops in glucose levels created cravings. So what they did is they got some participants and they put them in an fMRI scanner, the donut like scanners that you
Okay,
see in
yep.
the hospitals. Yeah. So they put people in these machines, and at the same time, they projected on a screen in front of their eyes photos of foods, various foods
Mm.
like salad, broccoli, cheeseburger, cookie. And they asked the participants to rate how much they wanted to eat the food in front of them. So, how much they were having a craving for these foods. And last but not least, they had hooked up these participants to a machine that was monitoring their glucose levels in real time. What they found was the following: when the people's glucose levels were steady, they didn't rate any of the foods very highly. The burger was as appealing
Mm.
as the broccoli. It was sort of steady across. But as soon as their glucose levels were dropping even a little bit, for those of us who are familiar with the numbers, even drops of 20 milligrams per deciliter or less, which is tiny, tiny, the craving center in their brain activated. The scientists could see this thanks to the fMRI scanner. And the participants started rating the high calorie foods like the burger and the cookie super high on the scale. And so we saw the biological mechanism by which fluctuating glucose levels were impacting people and were literally making them crave these foods. And so this is really interesting to me because it shows us that our cravings are not our fault, right?
Hmm.
When we have a craving, often we're like, oh, I'm
So
such a bad
true.
person. I don't have any willpower. We get so down on ourselves. But actually, it's just your body's biological reaction to a glucose roller coaster happening within. And so when we study our glucose levels, this is one of the first things that dissipates the uncontrollable cravings. And people in my community report this to me all the time. And it's very freeing because then you're no longer, powerless, or your food habits are no longer dictated by these uncontrollable urges. You can really be more, just decide more what you eat based on pleasure and based on what you really feel like versus based on this craving.
Now, do you think it's necessarily a bad thing? Like, is your position that you should always just have very balanced glucose? Or like, when you get hungry naturally, like your glucose will dip a bit. But I guess what you're saying is like avoiding those wild fluctuations. Or are you saying always keep it as stable as possible? What's your opinion?
No, I mean, I'm somewhere in the middle. Of course, it's normal that your glucose levels will rise after you eat a balanced meal. But for example, if you're eating a huge chocolate cake and you have a massive spike of 100 or more, milligrams per deciliter, and then a big drop, there are ways to avoid that. There are
Mm-hmm.
ways to eat the cake and all the foods you love with smaller fluctuations, which means less of a cravings roller coaster and less inflammation, aging, problematic things happening inside your body. You know, the glucose steadiness philosophy, you don't want to take it to an extreme, because if you just focus on keeping your glucose levels incredibly steady, you can do that by eating 5 pounds of bacon a day, because
Right.
something as fatty as bacon
Very
keeps your
true.
glucose levels
Keto
steady.
diet.
But that's not necessarily helpful. So my
Yeah.
philosophy is really learn these hacks to just reduce your spikes, essentially. Like, try to curb them a little bit, um, with things that feel easy, but don't go too extreme. But there's a lot of benefits in just curbing them a little bit. We feel much better physically and mentally.
Oh my God, totally. Well, I know when I used to be a sugar addict, it used to just make me feel so like you said, like I would just like blame myself. Like, why do I not have control? Like, why is it that if I eat, one cookie after dinner, I just like I can't stop. I just and you just like really beat yourself up. And then for me, it used to also cause anxiety. So I know now whenever, like, for example, I mean, I eat very, very little refined sugar. But if I was to eat something sugary, I would probably actually have a piece of cheese or something. Seriously,
Mm-hmm.
like something to kind of, and I don't eat very much dairy anyhow, but I just always look for, a fat and a protein to balance it. So can we talk about some of those hacks?
Yeah.
Because you've got tons of them and there's
Mm-hmm.
so many things that people can do to improve their blood sugar balance. So what have you found that, what are some of those hacks that have like the biggest impact?
So the one you just mentioned, what you're doing is actually you're putting clothing on your carbs.
Oh,
So
I like that.
that's one of the hacks. Yeah, so that's one of
Love
the
that.
hacks. So every time you eat something starchy or sweet, which both create glucose spikes in your body, um, the idea is to put clothing on them. Clothing can be protein, fat, or fiber. So, for example, if you're having rice, add some broccoli to it. That'll add some fiber, reduce the glucose spike. If you're having a cookie, have it with some nuts or some Greek yogurt to add protein and fat to the mix so that the spike from the cookie is smaller and you don't create that cravings roller coaster. So that's a good one. And it's especially powerful when you're thinking of snacks. So, afternoon snacks, make sure to add clothing
Mhm.
to your carbs. Another one that I really love is eating your food in the right order. So the science shows us that you can eat the exact same meal, but if you eat the components of that meal in a specific order, you can reduce the glucose spike by up to 75%
Amazing.
of that meal. Yeah. And the correct order is vegetables first, proteins and fats second, starches and sugars last. So,
Mm.
example, yeah. So if you're having, let's say, some eggs, some rice, some avocado, some broccoli, and then a dessert, the correct order to eat the food in would be vegetables first, so broccoli first, then the proteins and the fats, so then the eggs and the avocado, then the starch, the rice, and then the sugars, whatever your dessert is. So you don't actually have to change what you're eating if you just learn to change how you're eating it, and you can have massive impact on your glucose levels. So those are just two of the many hacks that I summarized from the science, and share. And really, they're super easy to apply, and they become habits, because you feel so much better when you do them that you just want to do them all the time.
Yeah, totally. Those are amazing hacks and I think very simple to follow. And now for a short break. I've been a tea drinker since I was a teenager, and I am proud to say I've converted many coffee lovers into enthusiastic tea lovers too. And yes, you can be both a coffee lover and a tea lover. I love the calming ritual of taking a mindful moment to infuse some organic herbs into a nourishing cup of goodness, then slowly sipping up all the amazing health benefits from the blend of ingredients that make up a perfectly balanced cup of herbal tea. It's truly joyous. This deep love of tea and health habits that improve our well-being inspired me to collaborate with a local tea artisan to create a unique blend of wellness teas for you, my Joyous Health community. I wanted to focus on pure, natural, organic herbs and spices to let Mother Nature shine. So when you open a bag of our tea, what you see is exactly what you get. There's no hidden ingredients, flavors, additives, or chemicals. Only a blend of 100% organic ingredients that benefit your wellness and are absolutely delicious. We've carefully selected each ingredient for both its natural flavor and health benefits, and each tea is locally handcrafted right here in Toronto, Canada. So whether you're looking to reduce stress, manage inflammation, ease digestion, support your skin, unwind at the end of the day, or balance your blood sugar, I have the perfect tea for you. Right now, we have 5 unique organic herbal teas in our shop. So let's take a moment to meet 2 of our stars. I love starting my day with a cup of Rise and Shine tea. It's uplifting and grounding, caffeine-free, and it's made from a delicious blend of organic ingredients including turmeric, ginger, cardamom, cinnamon, and tulsi to help you start your day joyously. A mug of this special tea literally warms you up from the inside out. Our Rise and Shine tea is formulated with a Tulsi tea base. Now, this flavorful herb is a potent adaptogen. That means it helps the body cope with stress and anxiety, and it literally can increase your body's natural resilience. One of my favorite spices, turmeric, is most well known for its anti-inflammatory properties and also helps stimulate phase 2 liver detox pathways. If you happen to experience a stomach ache or nausea, the ginger in this tea can help to provide natural relief. You'll enjoy making a tea latte too with the Rise and Shine. It's so good on early mornings. It's such a nice way to awaken your body and boost your health for the day or before going to bed as a mindful ritual to wind down for deep and healing rest. Even though the name is Rise and Shine, it's safe to drink at night because, as I mentioned, it doesn't have any caffeine. Next, I love taking a mid-afternoon pause with a cup of our Joyous Rejuvenate tea. This tea is a refreshing and rejuvenating herbal blend of anti-inflammatory and detoxifying ingredients that will leave you feeling uplifted, rejuvenated, and joyous. Green rooibos is the main ingredient and is very high in an antioxidant called aspartame, which has been shown in animal studies to improve blood sugar balance. Lemongrass is excellent for digestion, and it's also a natural antimicrobial. Ginger is a potent anti-inflammatory for the whole body that also supports a healthy digestion. The best part of this tea is that the combination of flavors makes for a bright and refreshing drink that is super delicious, hot or chilled. In the summer, I love making a jug of the Joyous Rejuvenate tea and I just leave it in the fridge so I have it chilled. It's the perfect way to cool down, support your whole body health with every sip, and it's also really nice to have if you are entertaining because it is a total crowd pleaser. To check out all of our teas, visit shopjoyoushealth/herbal-tea. You can even enjoy 10% off your next tea purchase by entering JHPTEA, JHPT obviously, when you check out. So JHPTEA for 10% off. And now back to our guest. It sounds like what you're saying is really when you eat these foods together, you're lowering the overall glycemic load. So some people might say oh, you should never eat strawberries or you should never eat carrots or don't eat beets. Beets, that's so high on the glycemic index. What do you have to say about that? What I'm kind of hearing from you is that there are no bad foods. It's just how you combine your food.
I honestly think that's BS. Making any foods, especially whole foods, off limits is totally counterproductive. You can eat everything. You really can. And by using the hacks, you can minimize the impact of the foods that have a big glycemic index. But to be honest, when it comes to whole foods like carrots or beets, those are not the things that are going to create the biggest glucose spikes. What's going to create big glucose spikes are naked carbs. So carbs that don't have any clothing on them, anything super sweet or sugary, because if you eat something sugary, not only are you getting a glucose spike, you're also getting a fructose spike. Right. And that's even worse for us than something that just contains glucose. So I'm really against any diet that says that some foods are off limits because I just don't think it's sustainable. I think it can create a lot of guilt and potentially have damaging consequences. And then it's, I believe we should learn these principles based in the biochemistry of how our bodies work, looking at nutrition through the lens of glucose, and just keep these principles with us for our entire life. Instead of trying something, stopping for a month, trying something else that's extreme, that's just not cool.
Yeah, and it's so much more reasonable. Do you think there's fluctuations in biochemical individuality? Say between my husband and I know, for example, that there's certain he can drink alcohol. I don't drink at all. He feels fine. He doesn't get hangovers. He drinks coffee and can go to sleep. So and I can't, I don't drink coffee, but I do my green tea and whatnot. But I'm just curious, are there fluctuations as well with things like sugar? Some people just deal with sugar better. Have you noticed that when you've looked at the science?
Yes. So what we know is that, let's say you and I, if we both ate the same cookie and then we looked at our glucose levels, we might have very different looking spikes. I might have a very big spike and you might have a very small spike. And so there's actually lots of factors at play that determine how big your glucose response is going to be to a meal. I'm going to give you a small non-exhaustive list. Where you are in your menstrual cycle, how much muscle mass you have, how sleep deprived you are, how hydrated you are, what your microbiome is composed of, what you currently have in your stomach from your previous meal, how stressed you are. I mean, so many things, even within in the same person. So if I ate this cookie today and I ate it again tomorrow, I might see completely different curves. And actually, comparing two people's curves is not that useful because of all these variables. What matters is that in you, just like in me, if we both had put clothing on the cookie, let's say we both had 10 almonds before the cookie, both of our spikes would be smaller. And that's the key. It's not so much you versus me. It's sort of like me without the hacks versus me with the hacks.
Yeah, exactly. So I love all those reasons or just, factors that impacted. Cause as you were saying them all, I'm like, oh, for sure. Stress. I know that when I'm stressed out, I'm so much more sensitive to like the carbs I'm eating. So can you just explain as well, like, so if you're to have like this handful of almonds before you eat the cookie, I assume what's going on, like from my nutritionist brain, is that, the almonds with their fat and fiber slow down digestion and their fiber. So is that kind of what's going on there? You're slowing down digestion, then you're eating that cookie versus eating the cookie, which, no, it's all refined carbs. You digest it super fast. Is that kind of what's happening with your glucose? Why your glucose?
That's one of the things that's happening. So you're correct. Every time you eat protein or fat, it slows down the speed at which food moves from stomach to intestine. But also, when you eat something that has fiber in it, something else happens that's completely magical. The fiber actually coats the inside of your small intestine with this sort of viscous mesh. And this mesh stays there for a couple of hours and protects your body from absorbing too much glucose coming down afterwards. So let's say we had 10 almonds. One, this mesh would get put in place. Two, the digestion will be slowed down. So the cookie that we eat afterwards would get to your small intestine at a slower pace because the digestion is slowed down. And then once it actually gets there, fewer of the glucose molecules from that cookie would even make it into the bloodstream because of the mesh. Therefore, smaller glucose spike, even though you still ate the cookie.
Right. That's so fascinating. I didn't know that. So are there some fibers, like, I don't know, as you were talking about how it kind of like coats the small intestine, I was like thinking about like chia pudding. Like, are there some fibers that, have that mucilaginous texture that do a better job? Or is it just kind of like fiber in general?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I will definitely look into that. From the studies, we know that the most effective vessel for fiber is vegetables. Those have the biggest impact on reducing the glucose spike. So maybe vegetables have like a special, really potent type of fiber. I don't know, but I'll look it up.
Okay, yeah. I'd be curious to see. So that's also fascinating. And I think like it makes sense too, when I think if I had a cookie on an empty stomach versus having it after a meal, it's going to have, a totally different effect on my body. So that makes a lot of sense. So when it comes to setting yourself up for success, to have good blood sugar balance throughout the day, what role does breakfast play? Like, are you someone who is a fan of intermittent fasting? Or are you like, nope, you need to have breakfast, sets the stage for the day? What is your position on that?
Well, there's two questions in there. The first one is about the role breakfast plays in glucose, and the second one is about fasting.
Yeah.
I'll start with the fasting one because it's a shorter answer. So the science shows us that it's better to eat all of your food in a day in 3 meals rather than 6, for example. So we know that snacking all the time is not great. That's pretty clear. Then it's really up to you how far you want to take the intermittent fasting thing. We know that in women, especially women of reproductive age, women in the week before their period, fasting can be a bit more stressful on the body. In men, it seems to have a lot of benefits. So it's really, I really believe in just listening to your body and figuring out what works for you. Don't forget that fasting is a stressor. It's a good stressor because it makes your body more resilient. But what I do is if I'm already stressed, haven't slept very well, doing intense workouts, have a lot of work. I don't fast because that adds sort of an extra layer
Right.
of stress to my body. Personally, that's me. But then when I feel good, then I want to sort of do some stuff to pump myself up. Then I'll probably feel like skipping breakfast. But it's really dependent on so many things. So I recommend people listen to their bodies for sure.
That's great
Uh,
advice.
Thank you. And then in terms of breakfast, okay, so the science shows us something rather crazy. The shape of the glucose curve or the glucose spike of your breakfast will dictate how hungry you feel for the rest of the day and how many cravings you have for the rest of the
Mm.
day. And in the studies, they gave participants two different breakfasts. The breakfast had the exact same number of calories. Okay, so it's not about calories. One breakfast created a big spike, the other breakfast didn't. The breakfast that created the big spike led to the participants being hungry again in 2 hours. The breakfast that kept glucose levels steady kept the participants not hungry for 4, 5, 6 hours. And we know that first thing in the morning, when you're completely fasted, your body is going to be super receptive to anything you put in it. So actually, it's kind of the most important meal of the day in terms of setting yourself up for success glucose wise. And the hack I have for breakfast is very simple: eat a savory breakfast.
Mm.
So avoid anything sweet except whole fruit. And basically, by doing that, you'll be able to set yourself up for success for the rest of the day. So build a breakfast around protein, fat, fiber. You can add some starches for taste. So you can have, some toast with your eggs and avocado, no problem. And then if you want something sweet, just go for whole fruit. Cut out fruit juices, cereal, muesli, anything sweet. And then if you want to eat sweet stuff, wait until dessert after lunch or after dinner. That's the best time, as you said before,
Mm.
to eat something sweet.
So what is your, okay, so I love eggs. That's like when I have eggs for breakfast, that is when I feel good for 4 to 5 hours. Like I do not need to eat again versus if I'm in a rush and I just have time for like toast with almond butter and some hemp hearts. It doesn't last me. So what's like the perfect, do you have like a favorite breakfast that you feel is like, yes, this is like my breakfast of champions. I can sail through my day. What do you recommend?
Honestly, leftovers.
Yeah?
Leftovers and then a 2 egg, really thin omelet. I love making those. So,
Mm.
this morning, for example, I made a 2 egg omelet and then I had leftover broccoli and leftover eggplant that I had roasted the day before. And then just warm them
Yum.
up in the oven. Have that with some cheese. So good.
So do you always make sure that when you're cooking, that you always like cook extra so you have it the next morning?
I wish I was that organized. Yes, of course. No, I don't. It just happens sometimes.
Okay, because I'm gonna say I'm not. Well, it's not that I'm not that organized. I feel like we just don't like. We're a family of three. We have a daughter who's 6, and I find that we don't. I know exactly what you're saying, but I feel like we don't ever have enough leftovers. But as I'm talking about this, I'm like, yes, we need to do that so that we can eat that way because I love it when say I do like a big sheet pan of tons of roasted veggies and I do have leftovers, but I'm going to take your advice because normally I save those leftovers for lunch. So what I should be
Mm,
doing then is if I have a big sheet pan of veggies, whatever it is, broccoli, cauliflower, sweet potato, than having that at breakfast with some eggs. So, do you
yes.
ever get people criticizing you about eating eggs? Because I feel like still to this day, people will say to me, like, whoa, like eggs, cholesterol, I don't know, Joy, saturated fat. Do you find that people are still feeling in your community, are people still feeling confused about eggs?
I get that question a lot, actually. So, in each chapter of my book, I sort of address common questions at the end of the chapter. And in the breakfast chapter, that's one of the questions that I answer. So, it's not people's fault. Like we used to think that eating
Mm-hmm.
foods high in cholesterol had an impact on our blood levels of cholesterol. And that's really been hammered into our brains. And so only recently have we discovered that actually, if you eat cholesterol, it does not end up as cholesterol in your bloodstream. And that's been a huge shift. We now know that one of the worst things for heart health is small, dense LDL cholesterol. And that cholesterol is produced by your liver after you eat sugar. So as a result, we actually know that, to help your heart, it's much more efficient to cut down on sugar than it is to cut
100%.
down on eggs. Yeah. So I mean, I don't feel, I don't get upset or anything if people ask me that. I acknowledge and I try to educate as much as possible. But there'll be a time when people will know this and it won't be a question anymore.
Yeah, I really hope so. I feel like it's been so long, like it's like decades now. Like this should be accepted. You can eat eggs. But I also think I'm so grateful for the work you're doing because I feel that so many people really don't know the impact of having, unstable blood sugar throughout the day and how it can lead to things like cardiovascular disease. So many, I feel like in Canada, anyhow, the average person outside of sort of the health and wellness sphere 100% think that it's saturated fat and heart disease versus like, oh, eating so many grains and sugars and rancid vegetable oils without, balancing them out and just eating too much refined foods and how that, puts you at a greater risk of chronic disease. So I'm really
Totally. And
happy.
we've also been told for so long that calories are the only thing that matter. And that if you're overweight or you're sick, it's your fault. It's because you eat too much and you don't exercise enough. And, a food isn't inherently bad. All that matters is calories. But again, like it's our job, and you and I and all the other amazing people in the world who are on our team, like it's our job to educate because there's been a lot of misinformation. But I think one of the great things, to come back to what you were saying about social media at the beginning, like yes, you find amazing people, and also it gives such a platform to share recent science and to educate
Yes.
the world. So of course it has downsides, but it's also super cool and powerful. And I'm glad, you use it just the same way I do to get people the message and help them heal. So
Yeah, totally. So I noticed that you love your apple cider vinegar. Me too. Can you talk a little bit about how that can improve your blood sugar? And can you also talk about in what form? Because you see, I remember a couple years ago, some brand sent me these apple cider gummies, and there's like sugar in there. I'm like, that doesn't really
Mhm.
make okay. Maybe it's just like a gummy to enjoy, but why do you love apple cider vinegar so much? What are the benefits? And then what form is best to have it?
So the gummies are not a good idea. I'm just going to say it flat out because they have sugar in them.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
and so that, anyway, so apple cider vinegar, or actually any type of vinegar, if you have a tablespoon of it before a meal, you can cut the glucose spike of the meal by up to 35% just by having vinegar before you eat. And the reason for that is in vinegar, there is this molecule called acetic acid. And acetic acid goes to your muscles and asks your muscles very nicely to soak up any excess glucose in your bloodstream and to store it in the form of glycogen. So, as you eat a meal and this acetic acid is in your system and talking to your muscles, any glucose from that meal, instead of just floating around in your bloodstream and making a big glucose spike, is going to be stored away by your muscles. Therefore, you're eating the same meal, but you're having a smaller spike. So, less inflammation, slower aging, no hunger or cravings roller coaster. You're helping your hormones, you're helping your long term health. And in the studies, because there are many clinical trials, double blind, placebo controlled trials showing that just adding vinegar a couple of times a day can help people put their type 2 diabetes in remission, can help women with polycystic ovarian syndrome, reduce their testosterone, etc. So it's really powerful. It's very cheap. And it's something that everybody can try.
So simple. And how
Yeah.
much so is there a certain type of vinegar like you prefer apple cider vinegar? That's kind of what you're recommending? And how much would
Yeah.
you recommend?
It's just for a taste thing. So you can use any type of vinegar, not
Okay.
balsamic because it has a lot of sugar left over from the
Right.
fermentation process. But I like apple cider vinegar. Other people like white wine vinegar, cherry vinegar, rice
Okay.
vinegar,
So it
like
doesn't really have
whatever
to
you want. Yeah. And so the amount in the studies, the amount is 1 tablespoon of vinegar in a really
Okay.
tall glass of water, diluted before meals. Now, if you're just starting out, 1 tablespoon might feel quite strong. So you can either dilute it in like a lot of water, like a large water bottle, or just start with a smaller amount and see if you are able to like it and handle it. And don't force yourself. If this is a taste you really don't like, don't worry. I have many other hacks that are just as powerful.
I feel like you get used to it though, because I remember
You
I used
do.
to hate apple cider vinegar. Like when I
Mm.
would drink it, I would plug my nose. And now, and now I really like it. I'm curious as well. Okay, so does it matter if so I have maybe like a quarter cup of water in this mason jar left. Does it still work if you're using a tablespoon in a smaller, like in a more concentrated amount?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
It's better to dilute. Essentially, why we're diluting it is for taste and to protect your teeth. That's really the
Right.
only reason. So,
Okay.
yeah. And so a lot of people are trying the apple cider vinegar pills,
Right.
not gummies,
Yeah.
pills.
What do you think of
It
those?
Well, it's not clear totally if the acetic acid in them is stable enough to still have an impact. However, honestly, there isn't really a big downside. Like the worst thing that can happen is that they don't work, but at least they don't have sugar in them. So
Right.
if you can't stand the taste, but you still want to try and see if it makes you feel better, go for it. And in terms of the pills, in order to get enough of the acetic acid, you need to take about 3 or 4 pills to have as
Okay.
much acetic acid as in a tablespoon of vinegar. So just keep that in mind. I personally am not a big pill swallower. I just don't really
No.
like it. But I know loads of people prefer the pills. So
Okay.
yeah, go for it.
Okay, so pills or the vinegar liquid, but not the gummies.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because they're loaded with sugar. And now for a short break. You learned about the amazing benefits of our Rise and Shine and Rejuvenate teas already, but I'm such a tea lover, I couldn't stop at just 2 blends. Now I want to introduce you to 2 of our brand new teas and one of our bestsellers. I'm a big fan of natural skin and beauty care, which is why I want to go even deeper to give you a tea that supports your beauty from the inside out. Our Radiance tea is loaded with skin-loving ingredients like rose petals, nettles, moringa, and lavender. Radiance tea is light and earthy. It's an herbal green tea blend that will have you glowing from the inside out. And it also contains some organic green tea and white tea for extra beautifying antioxidants, which means it also has a light hit of caffeine. This fresh tea has a subtle floral taste thanks to the rose and lavender that is perfectly complemented by the light and earthy notes of green tea. Every cup will help strengthen and protect skin cells while it nourishes the gut and supports healthy digestion for glowing skin from head to toe. It's the perfect tasty way to stay hydrated and get your glow on with every sip. Now, when it comes to health, soothing stress and anxiety plays a crucial role, which is why I wanted to create a tea that supports your nervous system from morning to night. Our new TLC tea is packed with a blend of organic herbs like lemon balm, chamomile, passion flower, and lavender that have all been specially chosen to nourish and soothe your nervous system so you can feel relaxed and calm any time of day. Beautiful passion flower supports the production of GABA to help calm racing thoughts and promote rest and relaxation. It's also a great tea for people who struggle with stress and anxiety, since chamomile, lavender, and lemon balm can help boost your natural resilience and reduce anxiety, which is why I literally drink it every single night before bed. It has a beautiful, subtle, honey sweet and floral flavor thanks to the chamomile, lavender, and passion flower that is perfectly balanced with a hint of freshness from the lemon balm. So pour yourself a tender, loving cuppa at the end of a long day to help your body and soul relax and unwind so you can drift off to dreamland for deep and healing rest. Did you catch that? Tender, loving cuppa? That's why we called it TLC. And finally, let's not forget my super gentle Joyous Detox tea, which is a soothing and detoxifying caffeine-free tea as well. It's made with pure organic ingredients that support your body's natural detoxification system to keep you feeling joyous all year long. There's no need to rely on strict detoxes or harsh diets when you can support your body with Joyous Detox, a tea that's so gentle and naturally detoxifying that it's safe for daily drinking. Sip up all the detoxifying properties this tea has to offer, from liver-supporting organic milk thistle to organic dandelion root and immune balancing organic elderberries. You'll especially love the fresh spice of ginger combined with the bright citrus notes from the orange oil. To check out all of our teas, visit shopjoyoushealth.com/herbal-tea. You can even enjoy 10% off your next tea purchase by entering JHPTEA when you check out. Now back to our guest. Now, what about, is there any benefit to doing it afterwards at all?
Yes, there is, absolutely. So some studies show that even just having some vinegar in water first thing in the morning can still help long-term your glucose levels. So really any time is helpful, but for the biggest impact, you want to have it before your meals. So within like 30 minutes before your meals. But if you forget, or if you don't like doing it before your meals, adding it anytime is better than not adding it.
You know what? I totally do that before dinner, but as we're talking, I'm going to do that. I'm going to see for like a week and do it like before each meal and see like how my body is impacted. I'm really
Yeah, tell
curious
me.
about that. And I also find I use apple cider vinegar anytime I feel bloated or like I have a belly ache.
Mm,
I use it the same way and I find it always works. Like if I just feel really bloated and I like can't burp or something. I
yeah.
mean, it doesn't happen that often, but I just think apple cider vinegar has so many amazing uses. I absolutely loved it. So I'm glad we talked about that because I think that's such an easy hack for people.
So easy. All
What do
my
you
hacks are easy.
yeah. Well, that's why I'm so happy to have you here on the podcast because I knew there'd be so many great things that people can implement right away.
Mhm.
Is there anything that sort of compares to apple cider vinegar? Like, do you have an opinion on bitters? Like, you know how some people will use bitters prior to a meal, like burdock root, dandelion. That's more, I guess, to stimulate good digestion. But do you have any thoughts on those, or do you know of any of
I
the
really
research?
don't. I just don't know anything about them. I haven't
Yeah.
done any research or anything. It's definitely something I want to look into, but at this point, I'm not informed, so I can't
Yeah.
say. What do you think?
Okay. I don't know from a blood sugar perspective. I was just
Mm-hmm.
curious what you thought, but definitely from a digestive perspective to help stimulate enzymes, to help stimulate your pancreas, your
Mm-hmm.
liver. Bitters are amazing. I really love herbal medicine. So, but I kind of go, sometimes I use them, sometimes I don't, just kind of depends what I remember to do. But definitely going to get on doing the apple cider vinegar more often for sure. Are there
Nice.
any other habits aside from like food hacks? Are there any other lifestyle hacks that you recommend to help better balance your blood sugar?
Yes, absolutely. So one of my other hacks is after your meals, use your muscles for 10 minutes.
Okay.
So after lunch and dinner, essentially this hack is just about getting up, maybe dancing, maybe playing with your kids, maybe walking your dog, maybe doing the dishes, maybe folding your laundry, whatever, using your muscles for 10 minutes after eating. Because your muscles, as they contract, they need energy. And the first place they're going to look for energy is in the glucose in your bloodstream. So after a meal, if you're about to have a glucose spike, but then your muscles are contracting,
Mhm.
they're going to soak up the glucose in the bloodstream and reduce the spike as they use it to contract. So that's a really easy one. And it really has a huge impact. I used to feel really tired after my meals, like
Mhm.
always, just feeling super sleepy. And looking back, it was pretty clear that that was because of a glucose crash. Because
Right.
while the spike has harmful consequences, the crash, well, as I mentioned with the cravings, can make you have cravings, but it can also make you feel really tired. And
Mhm.
if you're able to curb the spike, that doesn't happen anymore. So to me, the movement after meals has really cured my post meal sleepiness, which has been very awesome.
Oh yeah, totally. Well, I guess that's why you always hear like go for a walk after dinner.
Hmm.
But I love the idea of like dancing because we often do that because when we have dinner, it's not that long after that our daughter goes to bed. So we often have like
Yeah.
a little dance party. And it always
Oh,
feels so
nice.
good and like mood uplifting, but I
Oh,
never really thought
yeah.
about the benefits like for blood sugar control. So that's really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
So many. You're welcome.
Do you think that do you recommend that people get a glucose monitor if they have the means to do that? Because, well, in Canada, you can just like go to a pharmacy and get one. Is that something that you recommend people do to monitor it or to kind of see how their own body might react to different foods?
I think it's definitely interesting. And I've learned a lot from wearing one. I say, why not? Like, if you can try it for a bit, test it out. It's not easy to get them everywhere. In the US, you need a prescription, for example.
Oh, do
In
you?
France, it's like in Canada, you can get them at the pharmacy. But I think my biggest problem with them right now is that there's very little education around like how to interpret the numbers, and the numbers can be kind of scary because you don't know what they mean, etc. So if any of you listening are thinking of trying it, have a look at my Instagram, try to understand like what matters, what's important, so you're educated and you have context to interpret what you see, because it can be a little bit stressful to get all these numbers flashed
Yeah.
in front of your eyes, like 85, 92, like, is that bad? Is too much? So just, and if you have my book also, that's really helpful.
Yeah, I was
So
just
just
gonna ask you,
educate
you cover
yourself.
that off in your book, right?
Oh, completely. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely.
I do
But
have
for
a
free, I have a lot of stuff on Instagram too. So if that's where you want to start. But yes, I mean, my book is the Bible to help you interpret all your glucose data, essentially. And also is the Bible for anybody who doesn't have a glucose monitor, because you can get a long way there just by using the hacks without actually having your own monitor. But I really think that, in the future, we're going to see more products built around glucose monitors for people without diabetes that are going to be friendlier and a bit less triggering or scary. I think we're getting there, but right now, just educate yourself so you're not alone trying to understand the
mhm.
numbers you see.
Let's just talk a little bit about your book. So we'll make sure we link it up in the show notes. It's called Glucose Revolution.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Who did you write this book for, and what kinds of tips and hacks? I mean, I know we talked about so much of it, but can you just tell us a little bit about your book and what are the kinds of things that you can find in there?
Yes. So Glucose Revolution is a book for anyone that doesn't wake up in the morning feeling amazing.
Okay.
That's who it's for. So if you're somebody who doesn't wake up in the morning feeling amazing, this book will empower you to do that. It'll help you heal physically and mentally by explaining to you the importance of glucose in every aspect of your health. And then by spelling out very simply these 10 hacks that are scientifically proven, that don't ask you to give up chocolate cake or go on a diet, that will just transform your health and will become your partners on your health journey.
Amazing. I have a PDF copy of your book, but I actually really like hard copies, so I'm definitely going to get a hard copy.
Yay.
Is the apple cider vinegar, is that one of those 10 hacks? Or is that
Yeah.
okay, I thought so. I'm in love
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
hack. I think it's so cool. Is there anything that we didn't cover off that you feel like, "Oh, Joy, I really wanna share this with your audience?"
I mean, there's something that I like saying, and maybe it'll resonate with some of the people listening. Like, be kind to yourself on your journey to better health, and just notice that a lot of the symptoms you feel or experience, whether it's acne, hormonal issues, fatigue, cravings, etc., those are your body trying to speak to you and tell you, "Hey, girl," or "Hey, guy," or "Hey, non-binary person." Um, there's probably glucose spikes happening within. As a reminder, 90% of us experience glucose spikes every day. So 90% of us will tremendously benefit from studying our glucose levels. And then you'll be able to reconnect with your body and, have your body become your best friend again. And that's really what I hope to everybody, because it's a beautiful state to be in.
Oh, absolutely. And I just wanna add that, everything you're doing is definitely really helping people because whether they're suffering from acne or they have pain in their body, it is really amazing how something so simple can have such a dramatic impact. Because I think a lot of times people just get so overwhelmed. They think, what? I have to totally do a sugar detox and, I can't eat anything that I enjoy anymore. But the reality is that there's simple hacks, simple habits like you talk about that have such a profound impact. And me, I'm definitely very motivated from a skin perspective because I dealt with rosacea for about 4 years. And I don't like to ever say that I feel like it's behind me, but you know what? If my blood sugar's all over the place and I'm stressed out and I'm like, it's a few days before my period, then my skin, the redness shows up. So it's all related. So I thank you so much for sharing all this. Where can people find and connect with you?
Thank you, Joy. So on Instagram, I'm at Glucose Goddess, and anywhere you can buy books. My book is called Glucose Revolution: The Life-Changing Power of Balancing Your Blood Sugar.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. I loved our chat.